a 9-year-old girl in Zaporizhzhia and a 66-year-old man in Kherson, according to Ukrainian officials. A 16-year-old boy was also injured and multiple homes were damaged in the attacks. This comes as Russia and Ukraine prepare for a second round of talks in Istanbul on June 2nd. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has questioned Russia's commitment to the peace talks and accused Moscow of trying to make the next round fruitless, as Russia is yet to send its negotiating proposals to Ukraine, which is a key demand by Kyiv.
I believe Russia is interested in peace. As we speak, they're building up their forces along Ukraine.
Meanwhile, after U.S. Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv, Graham announced that the U.S. Senate will advance a bill next week to impose tougher sanctions on Russia and countries continuing to buy its oil and other goods. During their visit, both senators also accused the Russian president of stalling the peace talks. On the other hand, Russia claims to have shot down over 1,400 Ukrainian drones in the past week and taken control of 13 settlements in Sumy, Kharkiv, and Donetsk. The Russian Defense Ministry also reported strikes on Ukrainian military infrastructure and repelled multiple attacks while advancing on several fronts. Ukraine, on the other hand, said its forces deployed a newly developed mobile air defense system to shoot down Russian drones over Odessa. Kyiv reported 93 frontline clashes on May 30 alone, including the repelling of the 28th Russian attacks near Pokrovsk. We have Ruben F. Johnson joining us. He's an international defense analyst live from Singapore. Ruben, thank you for joining us today. What do we know about the upcoming peace talks between Russia and Ukraine planned in Istanbul? Why is Russia refusing to make its peace memorandum public before these talks?
Thank you for having me. I don't have much that's very positive to say about these peace talks. There was a first round that Putin was supposed to attend, and he did not. This enraged the American president, Donald Trump, because he had staked some of his credibility on Putin actually showing up. They want to keep the negotiations secret because, number one, that's a typical Russian tactic, particularly when they're involved in any kind of negotiations that involve the U.S. But number two, Putin cannot afford there to be any information out in the public spaces that shows that the maximalist demands that he's been making since February of 2022, after the illegal invasion, that those demands have changed one iota. And that's what he'll have to do in order to get some kind of a deal, because Ukraine will never sign up to the demands he's been making. So this is another Russian maneuvering tactic that goes on. This is what they do. Bottom line, Vladimir Putin's not interested in peace. He's not interested in the war ending. If the war ends, that is the next step to him losing power.
And switching gears for a bit, what role is Turkey playing in mediating these peace efforts, even though you said Russia is not interested?
Well, I'm sorry, what role is who playing?
Turkey, Istanbul.
Well, Turkey have had off and on reasonably good relations with the Russians. It's also one of the few places in the world that Vladimir Putin can travel to without being arrested, because you remember he's an indicted war criminal. There's a warrant out from the International Criminal Court, and any country that's signed up to that convention is supposed to arrest him and send him to The Hague. So the number of places he can go, there's not many.
And President Trump called both Putin and Zelensky stubborn. How might that affect his mediation efforts?
Well, how do I want to say this? Calling President Zelensky stubborn when it's his country that's been invaded and his people that have been killed in the hundreds of thousands, I don't understand the use of that language. I would say President Zelensky is being heroically adamant about his country's sovereignty and about holding Russia accountable for their many, many, many thousands of war crimes. So I don't understand the context of that. I think anyone who uses that term in relation to Zelensky is probably going to reduce their effectiveness in any negotiations as a mediator.
And speaking of U.S., how do you feel about U.S. Senate planning to tighten sanctions against Russia and countries buying Russian goods? Do we have any information on what Senators Graham and Blumenthal discussed with President Zelensky during their visit to Kyiv?
I can tell you the absolute numbers, and these are not my numbers. These come from General Keith Kellogg, who is President Trump's envoy for Ukraine, special envoy. He said this some weeks ago. He said, if you were to take the pieces of paper with all of the different sanctions that have been enacted against or imposed on Russia, if you take all of those sanctions collectively on a scale of 1 to 10, the level of pressure they would place on Russia on a scale of 1 to 10 is about a 6. However, he said, if you look at how they're being enforced, it's on the scale of 1 to 10, it's about a 3. So those sanctions, you really don't have to add a great deal of new actions against Russia. If you would simply diligently and to the nth degree enforce the ones which are already there, there'd be significant changes in the situation and the Russians would really start to feel the pain. They're already starting to get very, very nervous about this shadow fleet of tankers that they have that are operating and illegally transferring oil.
And according to you, what are the chances of reaching an agreement in Istanbul?
I would say no better than 20%.
Okay, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing that insight. We now move on to